Okay, so today we'll do the last part of the animals bit. We'll do insects. And just as for a change, I thought instead of drawing with our regular gray graphite pencil, we'll use color pencils. So the advantage in using color pencils is that you don't get one well, firstly, there are multiple colors, so you can draw in multiple colors, and the line can be so subtle that it just gets absorbed in the painting. That way, you can keep the boundaries much softer. This works very well for anything that is organic, like insects, especially because they have such light, airy textures. Sometimes the wing is so translucent that when we make a very strong border with either a pen or pencil, it just looks a lot thicker than it should look. So color pencils are great for something like this. Even for flowers, the same technique can be used for flowers as well. That way, even the flowers can look a little more delicate. So I'll just share the pictures that I have put on the group. So I've tried to get a whole range of different kinds of insects. And I want to encourage everyone to try and make maybe a little book of insects or something like that. That way you can practice all of these. So we have beetles. I think we have some more beetles here. Oh no, okay. Then we have yeah. This is also a beetle, but maybe it be called a scarab or something. Then we have a bee. I put in uh this would be a pupa? No, what is this called? A pupa, right?
Pupa.
Right.
Cocoon, not a cocoon.
Cocoon, yeah. I keep forgetting.
Chrysalis.
Okay,
This
all
is
of
not
it.
a cocoon. It's a chrysalis, no?
So whatever it is, we have to just draw it, thankfully. You don't have to name it or remember what it's called. Um, some insects. What I've not put today is moths, which is just a whole beautiful category on their own. But I put this dragonfly, and I thought there was a damselfly also, but no, this one also we can do. So, and a cricket. So we can do all these on one page and make it look like a garden in which there are all sorts of insects. So to start with, um, let's start with this chrysalis pupa thing and use one of the colors that is close to this in your color pencil kit. So you can use a yellow or yellow ochre. And I want us to be able to draw this with, again, with some casual lines in the beginning. And also when we're painting, to put in paint with a very light hand. Subjects like these, which have very peculiar shapes, but not very specific peculiar shapes, can be a good exercise to free up your hand. Unlike other creatures, like if you've got a face of a dog, there is a specific place where you need the eyes, nose, mouth to be, a specific proportion you need to adhere to. In this case, those specifics can be reasonably flexible. Say, for example, if your pupa becomes the wrong angle or it becomes longer than necessary, it is not going to really make the picture look too bad. But in that process, we get to move the hand very freely. So I want you to try to do this like a 1 minute or 2 minute drawing exercise without without judging your lines too harshly. It's almost as if this is all you're going to get. This is the last picture you're going to make, and somebody is then going to throw you in a dungeon for 20 years. So, how will you make it? And you have a minute to do it with that sense of finality. Oh, sorry. I don't know what's wrong with my. Yeah, just give me a minute, please. You can all begin if you want to. Ah, okay. That's all I needed to do. Threaten my machine that we don't need you. All right. So when you're beginning with a color pencil, we start off pretty much in the same way as you would with any regular pencil. But since the line is lighter, you don't need to worry about how it is, uh, how many lines you need to make here. So you can literally start off with just making these shapes, which is like a semicircle up to this point, then bring the line down. And in this case, it's almost straight on the right top. There's some weird shape on the top from where it is attached. And then almost like the shape of the wing. Coming down to the bottom part. So with pencil, when you make multiple lines, color pencil, sorry, they can easily become part of the texture. In drawing these lines very freely, if, for example, you were to extend a line a little more than necessary, or make a line pointing in the other direction, in the wrong direction, a different direction, it is still okay. Okay, this is what I have made. And just to stop you from going on and on, I'm going to start painting immediately. So in a case like this, again, go with the light colors. This whole exercise is going to be uh, designed to make you use your brush very quickly. So quickly dip into the colors that you see might look like what you have on the reference image, and make very fast strokes. Like I see a yellow towards the left side. And use your brush very smoothly. So I don't want you to go back and forth like that. You don't really need that. And to this, add other colors that you can see. I see a green here and maybe a little bit of blue. So I'm just using colors from the palette and dumping them in these places. They have to just organically blend in in whatever place we keep them without too much of interference from us.
Aditi, the other color is cerulean blue, is it?
No, I'm not going to give you the colors today. I want you to
Okay.
figure it out because see,
Okay.
these now there are multiple ways. I could use a green, which I did. I could use
Hmm.
a blue, and by now
Yeah.
you know which blue works.
Okay.
So there is usually just an Unis B's difference when you are making sketches like these. When we are making a very specific painting, at that point, telling you the colors makes sense. So I want you to just put down the colors and don't bother with trying to blend it or correct it. Just see what happens over here. And just so that you'll do it for sure, I'm moving on to the next picture.
Wait.
No, I don't want to do The next one will be the beetle. The green beetle, which has that shine, the fluorescence. Not fluorescent so much. It is just a very shiny beetle. I haven't put a fluorescent one. I'll put it later. Let's see how fast we do this. Okay, now see the amount of space this beetle needs. Its horns are almost the size of its body. So leave that much space on top and then begin making the picture. In this case also, you can
It's the green one, Aditi.
the green one, correct.
Okay.
I will uh, clarify this one.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect.
So you can use more than one color to draw it also. Now that we have so many colors in the color pencil kit, you don't need to stick with just a yellow. So in this case now we can draw like a semicircle. Draw all its parts. And use the pencil to draw certain specific shapes, like this very interesting shape at its neck. And then also the edge. And then go back to the yellow pencil for the legs. And you can literally just mark the area first and then we can paint it. Now, when you're making these horns, like I've mentioned always, break up the shape. Don't make one whole horn and then the other one. It's easier if you break it up and then make parts of it. one after the other. It's a easier way to draw symmetry. Okay, was the drawing okay? Has everyone finished?
Yes, Aditi, almost.
Okay. Tarini, if you need extra time, please tell me.
No, I'm doing fairly well. Fairly well. Thank you.
Okay. I don't want to add to your pain by asking you to speed up.
No, let's see. Let's see. I'm doing this entire thing after very long. So let's see.
So, if I may, it might work for you that because your hands might be uncomfortable, you might be able to make light strokes.
Yeah.
Better.
Yes.
Yeah, so you don't have to press the brush. Very often I find people press the brush too much. So if you can just keep your hand like this, very loose and light, you might be able to paint better strokes. And the fewer strokes you need paint are better for the
Oh,
painting. This might just
okay.
turn out to be a welcome handicap.
I know.
There is always a silver lining.
Yes.
All right. Now, since this beetle has some parts which are reflecting light, use that light green color to mark those spaces out before we start painting, so that you don't paint over. There are at least 2 or 3 different greens or green blues or blue greens or whatever, and even a little bit of yellow in this. So I just want to go over what you can paint in what area. The central part looks very light green, almost like lime green. So in this space, you could paint mostly lemon yellow as the first layer, and then drag a little bit of lemon yellow and sap green mixture towards the side so that it becomes light in the center and dark on the outside. We can do the same thing on top. There's lemon yellow and sap green over here, and then you drag it outward with a little extra sap green. So when we have to do these, you should ideally have hydrated all the colors so that you can quickly pick the color and apply it. Like so. Wherever you feel you want to leave a little extra, you can go ahead and leave that. And then insert that green and then let it just do its thing. So when I'm painting, I usually tilt the brush sideways to apply the color. So I don't paint from the tip. I'm painting from like the edge, the sideways edge of, not entirely, but if you see the tip of the brush, I will be using a section that goes from here to here in painting. That helps me spread the paint out much better than just the tip. Wherever you feel you have these weird edges, you can just make a stroke in with your damp brush to smooth those out. And the smoothing of these edges works with just a couple of strokes with a damp brush. And then you wipe the brush on a rag. But don't go over and over. Let that reaction take place. It generally takes some time. While this part is drying, we will do something similar with yellow ochre on its head. Now, yellow ochre is often used as a base color for all sorts of organic illustrations.
It's a lovely color, actually.
Yeah. And it can bring in this warmth as an underlayer. So when you add other colors on top of it, it can be it can create a nice depth. Otherwise, the white color of the paper can be stark.
It's too stark, the white.
All right, now we'll use that same yellow ochre and paint the antennae. Now this process is only so that if you feel you unsure about the antennae, at least one base color will help you to see them better. And yellow ochre can be overpainted with something else quite easily so that it is not like if we were to paint this in the red, like the scarlet or not scarlet, a mixture of burnt sienna and yeah, even just burnt sienna would do. It might look too stark in the beginning. So we build up to that. Now, even for the, I suppose this part, the part which one would say is the forearm-like part. That has a highlight. So please keep one blank part here. Turn it in. And now at this point, if you feel the need to adjust from your pencil line, please do that. Because we've drawn the pencil illustration really fast, there's a chance that some lines may have been in the wrong place. I have forgotten to put a highlight here, but I'll show you that it won't matter because in the second layer, I will make some parts dark and leave some parts, so it will still look like a highlight. So often these certain body parts of insects can look very confusing. But if we at least visually break them apart, you see that it's again just a simple structure, usually a single line or a curve attached to another single line or a curve. And even this curve, if it looks too complicated to you, just make it like this. So like a compound curve. Through that, there are some shapes that come out of there. So I found that when I paint, or at least in the past, painting insects was definitely not one of my favorite topics. But I realized that I was missing out on a variety of color combinations, textures, proportions, and they are, once you start painting them, you realize they're absolutely gorgeous. They're like jewels. But culturally, we almost neglect insects, I feel. We don't give them their due. But in the West, they do have lots of, I guess, insect-centric artwork, and also incorporate insects in a lot of their art. Sometimes in still life, often you will see the painting of a dragonfly in an oil painting. In jewelry, what else? The Egyptians had had given a lot of importance to the scarab. So for us, I think, at least for me personally, enjoying insects was a very new experience. All right. So at every point where you see a certain color, you can now start inserting just a light shade with a brush stroke. So we want to keep making this like a casual illustration. So I want to show you how you can go about it. Now I'm mixing sap green, a little bit of emerald green, lemon yellow, a little bit of yellow ochre to create this vibrant green. I'm going to go over certain sections with that, and in some places, I'm also going to add a little bit of cobalt blue. So this is going to be our second layer.
Aditi, you'll have to just repeat those colors that you said. They sound very good for the...
Yes. So there's a lemon yellow, emerald green, a little bit of sap green is already there, and yellow ochre. The emerald green will give a different kind of vibrance. And the next one will be emerald green. I think there is still sap green and cobalt blue. So this is very little yellow component in it. The colors that we normally don't use for flowers and all, that's viridian, emerald, all of these I've seen a lot in insects. Okay, now I'm looking at this top shell and I'm making a few strokes, but only as strokes. You don't want to go into the highlight areas. And I keep wiping my brush because I want just a little bit of that color in my brush. So all these colors look a little weird because we don't have any contrast. Now using a thin brush, we can start adding some contrasting colors. So let's go with first just a little bit of burnt sienna and paint these horns. So when painting these, try to paint these in two lines, like paint from one edge. Instead of painting from one side, make lines along the length of the two sides like this. That way you automatically get a hollow in the center. And then you can fill in a few places and leave some parts of that hollow exposed so that it looks like it's a highlight very naturally. Then we'll use the same color in this section where the horns attach to the head. Becomes fairly narrow there. And then we come down to the sides. And just carve out the space or the shape that you need over there. So there is a proportion. Now I have gone a little beyond the proportion. My shell has come a little lower, but I can always paint the green part and make it the right proportion instead of bringing down the red part, because that will look really odd. I'm adding a little bit of burnt umber and I'm making these claws. These can also be made from both sides. So you have one shape like a hook in a V shape. And that V shape comes downward like this. You have two prongs from the other side. So go literally one line at a time. Now, though the color in the reference image looks really dark, I'm making this a reddish shade right now so that it's not one stark black color. We are going to paint this in black again to add contrast. But contrast does not come with just one shade or one color. Contrast comes with a number of shades and graded colors. So if you have adequate gradation and then you have a stark difference between the highlights and the shadows, then the picture stands out with even more strength, I would say. Now I'm bringing a dark color over here a little prematurely because I think the shell could still do with some work. But I want to just figure out what we can do and at what stage we are at. Sometimes even at this point, if we put in the dark shades, suddenly the shell looks like it's complete and it does not need really anything else. Now, the best part is in insects or drawing of insects, all of us who have an unsteady hand have an advantage because you will be making these, you will be painting with multiple strokes that will automatically start creating patchy texture. And that's great. In the second layer on the legs, you will see that there's a little bit of gray or blue or green. So change your color to the same green that you've used here, the bluish, the bluish green shade. That looks very nice over here, quite appropriate. It's a little dark, higher on the leg and a little lighter at the bottom. Now I'm going over my whole painting with one sweep of a yellow and green mix because my colors have become too light. They aren't deep enough. So I'm just going to sweep that color in. Maybe I might even add a little bit of gamboge to it this time. Oh, too much. So to the previous color, I've added gamboge for some vibrance. And then, because it wasn't matching, I've added some more sap green. And I will, using both a thick brush and a thin brush, I'll go over some sections which I had not painted earlier. Same thing for the bottom. Now, this is just something that I feel I need to do, but I don't think everyone needs to do this. If you've got the right color, then don't do this step. But I'm glad I'm able to show this to you, that if you feel that just a tint of another color will make your whole picture look more vibrant, you just go over the whole illustration with one shade. So this is a technique that is often used in watercolor, like they use in oil painting, that they would put a base note of a contrasting color. We've not put contrasting color, but you'll often come across watercolor paintings where they will put a shadow color before and then they will start painting. We've done this before when we painted birds and things. So even in that color is applied in not like a wash, but only in places where you can see specific shadows. It's a very, very detailed application. And once that is done, then you do a swift sweeping wash on the whole image so that all of the colors get incorporated together and then they pop out. Right, so now that I have painted this, I think I need to wait. So we'll go back to our pupa, and in this we can add a few more shadows. So here on the thorns, we have a few shadows. I'm just taking some random browns. Remember, this painting is not made to be very detailed and specific. So I'm just making a few strokes for those thorns. What looks like thorns are probably the limbs. And using the same color very gently to create a shadow underneath what looks like that wing shape by pressing my brush down. Then we have some interesting dot-like features here. Any place you have dots or lines, please use them because they create a I guess you could say a loose feature. So at least gives some kind of texture for the eye to behold. Adding a few strokes from the right in the patches between those two lines. So this will add some dimension. And these are just in blue. Few dots and lines here. And as far as this texture is concerned, if you want, you can make it loosely, lightly, and stick to the bigger lines, not the detailed lines, not really necessary. Like over here, we have a nice circular shape. Something's happening here. That's good enough. Okay, I'm just going to be right back. Okay, now we can add the darker details. So whenever you're choosing colors from your palette, please be very flexible. There could be lots of colors that can be created here. So if you need to darken a green or a yellow, just go into whatever shade and pick up the color, make a small patch somewhere and start painting. The whole beauty of watercolor is its flexibility, so that you don't need to necessarily make a fresh batch of color. There are various ways in which you can arrive at a shade. So use that to your advantage. Now creating some shadows between these two parts. And then I'm going to add some shadows just along this edge on the legs. That way the legs will stand out, and so will the shell. Remember, we have not darkened it with either pencil or with pen. So it has to, in a way, stand on its own. And at this point, every little bit that you add will change the illustration. So in this case now, I'm adding that yellow ochre line right in the center. And the moment you do that, those wings will start looking like they're separated.
Aditi, what was the wash you used before on the green beetle? Not the final one, the one before that.
The base wash.
Yeah. You did
That
the base wash and then you did another one on top and then you did yellow ochre right at the end, right? Is that
not
what you
yellow.
did?
Not yellow. Well, I guess no, it's not yellow ochre. I put gamboge
Okay.
to
Okay.
brighten
So
up.
gamboge was the final wash that you gave?
Yes, so
And the one before that?
the one before that, there was no gamboge. There was lemon yellow, sap green, and emerald green. And to that mixture itself, I added gamboge to create some vibrancy.
Okay.
Okay, I've made a gray mixing burnt umber and black, and I'm using that to paint these legs. Now here is you can be very clever. Use a thin brush and only draw this out so that there's always a highlight in the center. So let me show you. I'm drawing like a curved teardrop shape. I'm just going along the edges and I'm not painting the center. So automatically, because of its size, it looks like that part could be the highlight. You really don't have to create a special highlight beyond that. Very much like how we've done over here on top for the horns. Here, you can make the legs just with a like a rickrack line. One line this way, one line this way, so that you get a line that is not too smooth. And then again, the same thing, make a double line like so. And wherever there's a gap, don't fill the gap. Such complicated things. Imagine this thing going to a manicurist or something. What a painful process it's going to be to try to clean its stuff. Now, wherever you have subtle colors, just put them like strokes. And I think the last part will be those eyes, eye-like things. Oh, sorry, and also a little bit of black on its whatever, tentacles. fingers in the foreground. Forelegs, sorry. So I'm very tempted to add more shadows and all, but I'm not going to do it right now. But we can keep building this up very subtly. Okay, the next one that I want to do will be that red and yellow moth-like creature. I don't think it's a moth, it's some kind of bee, somewhere between a bee or a bee wannabe moth. I don't know what it is. So I'll maybe in a couple of minutes, I'll just give you a few minutes to settle your beetle. Then we'll attempt this fellow. A couple of days ago, someone on the group shared a video on a lady named Maria Sibyl Merian, who was an illustrator of insects. So she was an amateur, I wouldn't say amateur actually. She was an illustrator. And there's a story about how she would draw insects in her yard. And she had drawn the entire life cycle of butterflies, I think. So this is in the late 17th century. And naturalists around that time had a problem understanding life cycles of animals that were not like us. So they often thought that caterpillars and butterflies, or caterpillars and moths, were completely separate creatures, and they did not have any connection to each other, and all of them grew spontaneously. So they just came out of the earth or something like that. So Maria, it is Maria, right? Maria Sibyl. I have that article in front of me. Yeah, Maria Sibylla Merian. So she, I believe she told the naturalists that, look, dudes, I've seen this. These caterpillars become moths and these caterpillars become butterflies. I've drawn pictures, and they thought this is just a woman. What does she know? And completely dismissed her for several years. So she just said, you know what, it's your loss. It doesn't, no skin off me, off my back. So she went about making her illustrations, and she also moved to Suriname, which is in South America. She was herself, what was she? I think, was she Dutch? Yeah, she was, wait a minute, I'm not sure. Suriname was a Dutch colony. So I'm imagining that she herself was also Dutch, or she English. She went with her daughter to Suriname, and there she continued to make illustrations. Oh, sorry, she was German. She was born in Frankfurt. And her illustrations are absolutely gorgeous. I'll share the article again if you want on this group. So please peruse, and please also see her other illustrations. So these, Maria Sibylla and Beatrix Potter, were the two artists that I spoke about in my kids' class. So this was when I was teaching in school. I wanted the girls to be a little excited about art for a different reason. Usually girls are interested in art, boys are not. And all the glory goes to male artists, and mostly women are just saying, oh, how nice and all. But there's very little credit given to the women artists.
Like chefs. It's
Yeah.
the same with chefs. It's so annoying.
Yeah, and I think we also grow up thinking, yeah, it's okay. I mean, let them take the glory, but we're constantly struggling to say that women are also just as good. So Maria Sibylla's story is a classic where the woman knew better, but the men didn't think that she could. So for years they were struggling, and then finally, many years later, they gave her credit because she had illustrations to prove her theory. It wasn't even a theory. She's like, I'm not making this up, guys. And in the case of Beatrix Potter, who wrote the story of Peter Rabbit, she was perhaps the first children's illustrator, children's author in England. I don't know about the rest of the world. Don't want to claim that. But she came up with these stories and these storybooks in a time when people were not really writing books for kids. Let's face the fact that kids only were not going to school. So nobody was reading. So writing books for kids was out of the question. So by the time she started illustrating and writing these, there was enough market. But there's a beautiful movie made in which Renee Zellweger plays Beatrix Potter. If you can find it, please do watch, because it's at some points it is extremely heartbreaking, but at some points just her grit and determination is very inspiring. So she came from a wealthy family, and she wanted to she started making these illustrations and started making books and publishing them. And her parents were not very happy because for them, earning money was considered to be lowbrow. And they didn't want her to be that type. They didn't want her to marry the publisher of her books. Finally, she decided she could not stay with her parents anymore. And then her publisher said, you don't even need to. You have enough money to buy 2 houses. She didn't even know how successful she was. So on her own, she went and bought those houses, lived there all her life, making these books. It's really inspiring. So I'll share both those articles with you, and I'll encourage you to do some hunting for other female artists as well. Yayoi Kusama was also one that I discovered through this. I used to do this program in school where the kids were all given an artist they had to make a presentation of, and they had to come in class and talk about that artist. So the girls this time I gave women authors, and the boy artists, and the boys I gave men, and the men were like very boring. They were the same usual. Everyone knows about them. But the girls were a little nervous. They said, nobody knows him. Who's going to listen? Where will I find this information? And the girl who did Yayoi Kusama, in fact, came back and she said, I quite like her. It's quite interesting. So I don't mind doing it. Shall we start with the bee that's masquerading as a butterfly? Okay, let's make this in a yellow pencil. So the body of the insect is going to become our unit. Depending upon how much space you have and you want to give there, decide the size of the insect by first creating the body. Break up the body in all the various color parts that you see so that you know exactly what you're getting into. Then you have a head shape here. And then from these golden dots on the shoulder, and just at the top of this golden patch is where the wings begin. So this is an unusual position. But
Aditi, I'm sorry, which picture is this?
oh, sorry, this is the red and yellow picture. Let me show you.
Red and yellow.
Yeah, this one. So when you have symmetrical insects or anything symmetrical, break it up and only draw paths. So I'm drawing only the part of the wing on both sides of the body that's closest to it at the bottom. And this will give me at least some support as I have to launch my line further. And at each point, I use the information that I've already got, like what is the distance between the tail end of this shape and the part of the wing that comes closest to it, because it comes there and then it turns around. And then how far does it turn around? So usually all this information is available to our eyes. We just don't spend so much time in figuring it out. So given the time, you can do this figuring out, and fairly quickly. And at every stage, you can keep checking. That's why the light lines help. Now mark out spaces. This also will help you figure out whether what you've drawn is accurate or you need more or less space in one place or another. So avoid the temptation of turning your book sideways. Draw this the way you see it, vertical. Because we often do a sideways symmetry, but very rarely do we make a linear symmetrical object. And again, this fellow, we don't have to make it too perfect. Now quickly fill out the yellow patches and red patches. So this is yellow here and here. Then we have a squarish yellow patch here. We don't really need to be super accurate because we can come and cover up all the excess space afterwards with black. Now, when you're making the yellow patch on the abdomen, we will come back into this and give it a little bit of a yellow ochre shade later on. So don't make it too thick or too bright either. For red, I'm using a scarlet. That's the best. Although the color that seen in the reference image is very vibrant. If you want, you can mix a little bit of orange also. And first, you can draw the large shape. Now, if you're painting a little beyond the edge, remember that you're doing that. So in some places, maybe your lines will even merge. This painting might even merge. And you might then have to paint the black on top of it. So just be cautious. Pay mind to what you're painting. Pay attention to that. So we need to let this dry for a bit. And while this is drying, again, just for practice, would you like to draw something of your choice? Because we still need to fill up the page.
We can do the ladybird.
Yeah, yes, why not? I've shown you the painting of the ladybird now before. I'll show you, those of you who weren't there for that class, I'd really like to show you this fellow. So,
Aditi, sorry, I'm lagging. The color that you've used is scarlet,
yes, with a little bit of orange for vibrancy.
and the other one is just gamboge.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Have I been saying yellow ochre for gamboge? I have a feeling that I've been saying yellow ochre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I've been using yellow ochre.
So in my brain, I'm thinking chrome yellow when I look at gamboge, and I'm saying yellow ochre, and then when someone asks me, "Is this yellow ochre?" I'm saying no. Something's wrong with my brain today. Okay, so one very easy way of painting ladybirds. Just make ovals.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God.
Oh,
It's right there. Sorry, we just saw a rat. So we're like,
what?
let the dog go
What? Oh
outside.
my God.
Let the dog go out. We've been keeping everything close because my neighbors got rats and
Oh
she just saw
no.
it. And I was like, oh my God, let her go out quickly. Our dog loves it.
The dog loves the rat?
To kill them, yeah.
Oh my
She's very good
God.
at it. But I hate rats, so.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty obvious. Right, so for beetles, I'm just drawing a generic ladybug. This is a very cute technique of painting ladybugs. Start off with just plain scarlet on that oval. I've made a little bit of a highlight on one side. And exactly on the opposite end of the highlight, pull the color. And here you can start adding burnt umber. Oh, this is too dark, but let's see how this turns out. Too much paint. You can, by the way, if you make this into a circle and paint it like that, this will very likely look like M&Ms. I'll wait for these to dry. In the meantime, now the main red insect has dried. So I shall paint this. Now this part you can paint, you need to paint very carefully. Use a thin brush to paint this also. And for those of you who are a little nervous about painting with a thin brush, Bindas use a pen. Don't shy from using a pen in this case, because after all, this is also just fully black. Oh, there's a little red patch here. Forgot to make that. And literally just go edge to edge, fill out the edges, and then color it in. As simple as that. There are many, many insects which have uh, a lot of black in them and a similar structure where you could paint the entire outer structure in black. The internal colors you paint first and then just go over them with this black shade. Black or sometimes blue. There's lots of dark colored insects. So this is the process. Now this edge I paint with a very zigzag kind of line because the wings are not smooth towards the back. I'm sure that has something to do with flight. So when painting this edge, instead of painting it like that, paint it this way. Make the effort. And then paint. When you're painting the wing, you can use a slightly less dense black color, because that will just give us an air of transparency, translucency, on which if we make lines, then it looks a little more dimensional. Even over here on the shoulder, where we have this yellow patch, even that edge can be less than smooth. And finally, this little thing on the body, you can add a small line of, this time I'm sure I'm saying it right, yellow ochre, not gamboge, not lemon yellow, just along the edge to give it this 3D feel. Unfortunately, I added black to that. So there are these really interesting fluorescent blue dots on the eyes, on some on the wing also. If you can make that, it's just, you just need to touch one part with cerulean blue, not the entire circle, but this time I've avoided that. It's good enough. Just don't cover up the highlights. So in a way, because highlights even look like diamonds, watch out for them and keep them always, protect them. Okay, I want to just show you this one last part for the beetles that we painted. Okay, here also I will draw these lines. Now remember that when we see these lines on the wing, they're usually coming from somewhere else. And you can trace the line back. This kind of structural understanding really makes for a much more convincing illustration than just drawing random lines. All right, for the beetles, these are just generic beetles. So on any one side, you can, of the longer side, not the shorter side, you can draw a little head, leave a little highlight again, a tiny one. You can make a slightly convex line to indicate the wings. And then make these dots, but don't make them like smooth circles. Actually, even if you do, it doesn't matter. Change the size. And this makes for a very, very convincing beetle. Two tiny antenna at the head, and that's good enough. If you feel the need, you can also add some tiny triangular feet. Now, another thing that you can do to make them look more convincing is to add a light shadow. And this goes for all insects here. Just using a wash of cerulean blue, just go underneath or at the bottom edge of the insect, and it'll look like they are actually sitting on your page. Now, this topic is great fun for those of you who want to make something like a series of insects. Because there are so many, you could make almost like a collection of maybe 6 such insects and put them up somewhere in your homes. 6 different butterflies, maybe some moths. That way, you get to practice just the different ways these insects are. It's a very short commitment, as you can see. It's not as complex as some of the other topics that we may choose. So you can take up one insect a day and make that almost, you could also make it like an accordion book. So you take an A4 size sheet, cut it in half lengthwise so that you get A7 size sheets like that. And then attach one to the other, and you can fold it like an accordion. So that becomes a very interesting keepsake. Those of you who are interested in also writing it down, you can have your own insect journal. So you can write name of the insect, where it is found. Most Indian states also have a state butterfly, by the way. So if you want, you can select that as your topic and draw all state butterflies. So there's lots of very interesting things one can do with this topic. What else? Yeah, you can make stickers out of this. They're very cute to put up in places. Okay, any questions? Oh, how nice. Looking good.
To finish
Hmm.
that.
Looking good, looking good. Oh, very good. Very nice, Alka. Let's see the pickers.
Thank
Very nice. Good, good. Everyone's got the highlights. A few shadows will help. Ritu is also looking nice. Okay, sorry for rushing through, Ritu. I'm trying to get everyone to paint lightly.
No problem.
Okay, so we're meeting tomorrow again? Yeah? 9:30?
Maybe I cannot join.
Yeah?
Oh, me neither. No, no.
Is it
I'm
because...
actually going to be in Pune tomorrow, Aditi.
Sundays I cannot do. I have Ashika's class.
Oh, okay, okay. So let's just discuss this on the group then. I'll ask who all are joining, because tomorrow I wanted to start our lettering class. But if not Sunday, then I don't know which other day. Then we fall short of one day during this month. So we'll figure out then. Let's see what everyone else says. Okay. All right. Please put your pictures on the group.
Aditi, will you just put the photo of your
Yes, yes, I'll do that.
painting?
I'll just finish this one moth and I'll put it.
Sure. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. Chalo, bye
Bye.
everyone.
Bye, bye,
Bye.
Thank
Aditi.
you.
Have a
Take
nice
care.
weekend.
Bye.